Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sarah, and I work with the Living Archives Project. Today is January 31st, 2023, and this week there were 214 reported cases of COVID-19 in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area, which actually shows a decrease of 32% over the last 2 weeks. Therefore, each subject is comfortable not wearing a mask. Jessica, would you introduce yourself?
My name is Jessica. I am 28 years old. I have brown hair with a fun blonde streak that I've had for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm petite and wearing an Ann Taylor patterned blouse because I'm at my job currently.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you lived? Do you live in the Charlotte area?
Yeah, I live in Huntersville.
Okay.
I've been in sort of Lake Norman area for almost 5 years now, which is crazy. I grew up around New Haven, Connecticut. That's where I lived till I moved here 5 years ago.
Okay. What brought you down to Huntersville and Lake Norman area?
So kind of a relationship.
Okay.
But I was finishing up college. It was like my senior year of college up in Connecticut. And I started a relationship with someone here, and the long distance was fine. Like, I honestly think it's an underrated arrangement. And but then once I graduated, I sort of kicked the idea around, and I just liked it here. It was just something, I guess, so it kind of was him, but more so I just liked it here. I thought I could do this. Things just sort of fell into place. And I just wanted to change, so I went for it. Didn't know how permanent it would be, honestly, and then that was 5 years ago, so I just keep staying. So.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned you're at your job. What do you do for a living?
I work for the public library here. I've been with the organization for about 3 years. Started part-time, and now at the Huntersville location, and now I'm full-time here at Mountain Island. Have been for about a year now.
Very cool. And what do you do at the library?
I am a library assistant. I kind of have my hand in a little bit of everything. I like to dabble. My main thing I do right now is, besides my circulation and stuff, my passion project is I'm the team lead we have a staff Spanish club.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that once a week. We watch a telenovela and talk about it once a week. It's really nice to do it on work time.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. Maybe I'll join you one day.
But I sort of dabble, like anything that needs to be done around here.
Yeah.
That's what I like about this job. It's just you sort of can be as busy as you want, or just do the books and stuff like that. It's kind of like how you make it. That's what I've really enjoyed about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, Jessica. I really appreciate it. So we did this activity together before we started our recorded interview. Would you mind sharing anything from your hand app that you want to share? Like what? Well, anything that sticks out to you, and if you would rather I ask you questions, I can do that too.
You could. Well, one thing that was interesting is I was sort of trying to like remind myself of like the beginning of COVID, because now it's like it's gone through so many phases and like feelings and I've but it's interesting because like one of the things I put to describe myself is I'm in shape, or I put it in Spanish actually because it's fun, en forma. And that I kind of forgot until I was thinking about it how I went to Connecticut while we were closed, and my sister was there, and we worked out together a lot in like the yard and stuff, because like what else were we gonna do in the basement? And it's funny because like that's a huge part of my life now, and it sort of like I kind of forgot how much that time propelled me, and now it's like a really big part of my life, so it's kind of interesting.
That's really cool. Like, you working out is a big part of your life, you're saying?
Yeah, just like how I think about myself, and like yeah, like I go to the gym now. It's just like a habit I have. I can't picture my life without it now.
Okay.
And yeah, it was one of my things that I'm in shape. It's like one of the ways I'd identify myself now, which is interesting.
Yeah. Very cool. Anything else that sticks out to you?
I mean, I hadn't thought about how I felt about COVID in a while, because I sort of feel like avoidant. Like I'm like, I put avoidant, tense, sad, tired, and weird.
Yeah.
Weird is in there too.
Definitely. What made it weird for you?
A lot of things. I think it was just so confusing. And I'm generally someone that's pretty firm in what I believe and what I think. Not to say that I'm like closed-minded, but just my my own self, like in terms of like my beliefs about like the world or like my values and stuff, I tend not to question those very easily. And so it's kind of crazy to me like how many different phases I've had throughout COVID. Like it was interesting how fluid I sort of was with different information, and I guess probably a lot of people have that experience. Like you think you know about the world you've been in. Like I was in my 20s, my mid-20s, so you think you know, you have certain beliefs and you have certain expectations of the world, and then the way it just like threw all that up into the air was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
In a way I don't think I ever thought something could, I guess. Yeah. So just weird. And just like the different, like the varying information, how differently like people in our lives felt like about it. Obviously it was divisive in a lot of ways because it was so political. Yeah, it's just like mind-blowing how not like influential, but just like the impact and how much it changed everything.
Totally. Yeah. I can relate to what you're saying, for sure. How do you think it impacted your life as a library assistant?
Well, when COVID, like in 2020, I was part-time, so I wasn't really serious about my career. I'm still not really, to be honest, but even more so then because I was only part-time. So I sort of felt like I didn't feel like a huge part of the organization because I was only part-time, and not that I didn't think I brought value, but just my existence in the organization, so, but then when we closed, because we were closed for like 2 months, which was crazy, I ended up, well, it's crazy to think back because I was so scared. It's crazy to think how scared I was. And I ended up when we were going to be closed, it was looking like we were going to be closed for at least a week or two. I thought probably 2 weeks. And so I really just wanted to go to Connecticut because I didn't know what I was going to do here in North Carolina. So it was just me and my boyfriend. He works in food distribution, so he was still working, and I was going to be home. So I just decided I would just go to Connecticut and hang out with my mom. And my sister, I don't know why she was home. Like, so she's 2 years younger than me. And so we were in college at the same time for a little while, and she lives in Boston now. We both have sort of like come and go from my mom's house over the years. It's kind of like our home base. Sometimes we're both there. Sometimes one of us is there. It's nice when the two of us are there. Like when we were in college at the same time during like winter break, we would be there together, and that was a really nice time. Since I had moved to North Carolina, it was sort of less and less of that. Because we wouldn't plan, we would just both come and go. So
Yeah.
I forget why. I guess maybe she had graduated. I'm not sure exactly her timeline, but for whatever reason, she was going to be spending the very beginning of the pandemic at my mom's house in Connecticut. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go to Connecticut. I don't have to work. What am I going to do in this apartment alone? So I left. I was in Connecticut for literally the whole time we were closed, so it ends up being a little while. Yeah. So I really wasn't a library assistant. I mean, I was still getting paid my small pay, my part-time pay. And then both my parents, who my dad doesn't live with my mom, but were essential workers. They also never stopped working, which is interesting. So
Okay.
yeah.
So what was that like for you, going back to Connecticut and staying in Connecticut? Did you kind of think, oh man, am I gonna be here forever? Or was it more of like you were firm in the understanding that it was just gonna be a little while?
So I was really scared of getting sick at first, and then with my boyfriend being out, like still working, that was like stressing me out for some reason more so than I guess my parents. I don't know, but the first thing was I was like, how am I going to get there? Because no one was flying at the time, and it's really far. To drive. It's 12 hours to drive, and at the time I had an old car. The car probably could have made it, but it was old and not comfortable. So I was like, how am I going to get up there? So I wasn't even sure if I could go, but I wanted to, because I usually fly. So I ended up, I had to get myself there was the first step. Mm-hmm. And I was so scared. I literally packed, so I made this whole plan to meet up with my parents in like Pennsylvania, because they were going to drive like 3 or 4 hours down south from them, and I was going to drive about 8 hours north. And then one of them I ended up taking my boyfriend's car, because he had a much nicer car, much more reliable. I take my boyfriend's Jeep, I was going to drive 8 hours. I literally like packed a sandwich because I didn't want to stop. I packed like Lysol wipes because I was probably going to have to stop and get gas. A mask, like Lysol spray, like I had to like gear up for this trip. And then I met my parents in Pennsylvania. It sort of worked out that I didn't have to, because it's a long way to drive alone.
Yeah.
So then once I finally got to Connecticut, I figured it would be at least 2 weeks. And up until that time, because I'd only been in Charlotte area for like maybe a year and a half, and since I was only part-time, I sort of would go back for a couple weeks at a time, because since I was part-time, I could do that. I just let my boss know, and like it wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, at that time, I was more so back and forth. So it wasn't that crazy that I'd be there for a couple weeks. I never thought it would have been 2 months. But I was like, I pretty much had the feeling I was just going to ride it out. I pretty much had the feeling I was just gonna stay there until I had to go back to work. I thought it would be a few weeks, but
Okay.
then they kept extending it.
Okay. So, in Connecticut, you were in a home with your parents and your sister.
Just my mom.
Oh, just your mom. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just your mom.
And very important to also why I wanted to go is 3 cats.
Okay.
Because I grew up with 3 cats, and that was like one of them is like my baby girl. She's no longer with us actually. But that was one of the hardest things about moving down here actually, which sounds crazy because it's like my family members, like my mom and sister and my dad, I could always FaceTime them or talk to them. We are still very much a part of each other's lives. But it's really difficult when you have a pet that you grew up with because it's like unless you're there, there's really no way to like connect with them. So that was a big reason why I wanted to go to Connecticut, because my cat that I grew up with at that time was like around 13 years old. And I said, you know what, if I'm not going to work and I'm not going to be doing anything, I'm going to go cuddle with my cat. That was like a big reason why I went.
Aww.
Yeah, honestly, so.
Did you get those cuddles in?
I sure did.
Aww.
Yeah, so yeah, and then at that time we had the 3 cats that I grew up with, and now only one of them is still with us, so.
Wow.
Yeah, and my sister struggled with the same thing, always, like, because we had them growing up, and then we both went to college, and we have to sort of move on with our lives, but that was kind of like our one cat that she just passed away in 2022, January 2022 she passed away. She would like keep us, she was like part of the anchor that kept us at my mom's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm so sorry for your loss. But also, it seems like you had a really special time
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. And actually, so the cats, I don't know how interesting this is to anyone else, but there's 3 cats. Well, so one of the cats, she was a dumpster cat that somebody just handed to my dad and was like, you have daughters, take this cat. And she was crazy. Like, she had this look in her eyes that she's seen a ghost. She had it her whole entire life. So, we ended up letting her go outside because she was so crazy. Like, we would find her in, like, the trash, and, like, we had to let this cat outside. She was kooky. And she ended up, we took her to the vet and tried to get her fixed, and she was too little because she was, like, literally, he said she was, like, 8 weeks old, which was crazy that someone just handed her to my dad. So anyway, we couldn't get her fixed, but we figured she probably needed to be fixed because she was going outside in the yard. But she ended up getting pregnant, and we kept 2 of the kittens. And it was funny because in my mom's house, we had her, who was the mom cat, and then 2 girl kittens. And, like, then we had my mom and me and my sister, and that's how we grew up. So it was, like, weirdly similar. And actually, so her name was Sally, the cat, the crazy cat. And, yeah, it was crazy because we all hadn't, how many is that, 6? All 6 of us, that's actually pretty much the last time all 6 of us were together for an extended period of time at my mom's house, which was like home base for years and years and years. And Sally, the crazy cat, she had been sort of sick for some time. She was just like, she was always a sickly cat. She was small, skinny. She was a dumpster cat. Like, she was always just so straggly looking no matter what we did to her. And interestingly enough, she had been sick for a while. And it seemed like she passed very timely because she passed when all of us were there together. And actually on Mother's Day,
Wow.
2020, which was so interesting because she was sort of like, she was the mother cat and had the 2 kittens that, they were the same age as her because she was so young. But, yeah, so that was a big happening while we were there. Sally, who had been sick for a long time, finally passed away on Mother's Day.
Wow. It's so So interesting the way it all happened, though.
Yeah, a lot of
Beautiful.
things came. Yeah, a lot of things came together. It was weird, and like I said, that was now that I didn't even think about it like this till now that I've had some time from it. But yeah, that was the last time the six of us were at that house together.
Yeah. Wow. So, so you were in Connecticut that time, spending quality time with family and your lovely cats, even Crazy Sally. and then you decided to come back to Charlotte when your job opened up again? Is that one of the reasons that brought you back?
Yeah, that's really the only reason.
Okay.
I actually was having a nice time in Connecticut, and I actually struggled with coming back. I thought about not coming back.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I also was hanging out with my best friend she lives in Boston. She ended up coming back to Connecticut for kind of the same thing I was doing, just like I think her work slowed down, or maybe I don't remember. But she ended up was spending a lot of time in the town we grew up too. So I was hanging out with her and my family. And yeah, I thought about not coming back a lot. The only thing because at that time too, I'd been to Charlotte for like a year and a half. So I just had started being like, okay, I know some places. I have some acquaintances. Like no one who was like a good, I didn't have like a solid friend group, but like there was people with potential and places with potential that I would go more. And then when the pandemic hit, it's like if you weren't good friends with someone, you probably weren't going to see them or you weren't going to, it was sort of like at a point where I'd go places and sort of like run into people and be like, oh, okay. So all that like, that little bit of familiarity that I had grown pretty much was out the window now, which I understood and felt because different places closed and so I was like, wow, like some of the social elements, be it small, the progress I'd made, it seemed like it wasn't going to be there. So then the one thing that brought me back was my job, because even though I was part-time, I really liked it. I didn't even know before I got that job that like working in a library was a thing. I didn't know that was a job. I don't know why. And I also, before I got the part-time library job, I really had no direction, like career-wise. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So yeah, the one thing that I really thought about just staying in Connecticut and not coming back. The one thing that brought me back was my job, because I didn't, especially with the uncertainty of like the job market at the time, I said, I better go back for this job because it's like, I don't know what else I'm going to do in my career. So so the job is what made me come back.
Okay. And then when you came back, you were still part-time, but now you're full-time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, when I was part-time, you had to stay part-time for a year, which is crazy. So it hadn't even been a year yet. And then once it finally was a year, it was like everything was still a little bit weird with their hiring. I think they had everything's always weird with their hiring, I realize now. I don't know if that was COVID or not, but yeah, so then I decided I did want to. Well, I turned 26, so I got the boot from my parents' insurance, some other things. I was like, all right, I guess it's finally time to be an adult for real. So I started looking for full-time in the system. Obviously, I live in Huntersville, so it's kind of limited what branches because I'm in like a specific part of the county. I didn't want to have to drive far. I also really liked North County, like the Huntersville branch. So it would have been nice if something open there, but it didn't seem like anything would. So yeah, I put some applications out and I thought, okay, I guess it's time to be a big girl. And this has really been my first full-time job. I've been here over a year, and that's changed me a lot, too. That was one of the journeys I put being full-time. I've grown up a lot and
Yeah.
changed a lot. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how did you feel like the library was impacted in terms of what you could do at your job? Do you feel like it was impacted by COVID-19?
I think the library did pretty good with like change, like it luckily was able to go virtual pretty easily, some of the programs. It was crazy, the stuff when I was part-time at North County and we were still like in it with people wearing masks, like it was crazy. It was kind of fun though, because I remember for a while we just had nobody in the building and we would just like bring the books out to them, or like we just had like a little tiny space that they can come into and get their holds. And it was kind of, actually, at that time, well, so I got hired at North County November 2019. So it was like right before, because then we closed in March 2020. So it was really only a couple months.
Yeah.
And so I guess a lot of my time, like, really sort of growing such an enjoyment for the job, I guess a lot of it was after COVID already had existed. So, yeah, I ended up also, no one was really socializing that much outside of work. So I ended up being very social with everyone there, especially because there was so long when we had no one else besides the workers inside the building or just in the little area. So I really leaned on my coworkers and just like socially, and it was a nice time when no one was in the building. We would just, like I said, I was still part-time, so I just like, in terms of like the organization, its direction, even like the communications, like I would barely even look at my email, like, because just so little applies to like, or to you in the organizational stuff, because like you don't get benefits. So like, just, I wasn't really up fully on the direction of the organization and all that type of stuff like I am now, because I just don't have that much stake in what's going on. You don't have that much stake in me either, because I don't even have benefits. So, but I guess I've always thought of myself as a really versatile person over the years, and that really helped me because county had different things they wanted us to do, like almost every week. It was like, we were bringing the books outside. Okay, no, we're not going to bring them outside. They're going to come into this little area, or you're going to place holds, or we're going to do book bundles. And I'm really fortunate that stuff like that doesn't, some people aren't so good with like things that were changing, I guess. Luckily for me, I just was fine with it. Like, whatever you want me to do. I didn't really like the going outside and bringing people the books. If the weather was bad, I didn't really care for that. But it was kind of, in a weird way, it was kind of fun because it was just the coworkers in the building. We had our stuff everywhere. Like, you could like, we weren't confined to our locker. We like all had our little areas we could go in the building, which we did because to separate for like lunch and stuff. So it weirdly was kind of a fun time at North County. I mean, I feel like a lot of the people that worked there, it was like we weren't socializing so much outside. We were all like, I feel like there was a sense of like we were grateful that we were working and getting paid when some people wouldn't be. So I feel like it was a sense of like, let's just make the best out of this. And we're still getting people books. We're still here. We're still getting paid. Yeah, so weirdly it was kind of a fun time at North County.
Sounds like you were you easily adapted to the needs.
Yeah, I think the library did a good job with like putting stuff online and doing the best they could. I also really liked, at first I was really scared, like now I'm not really scared anymore, but because they were so restrictive, like with people wearing masks and nobody coming in, and I think if I would have not felt safe, it would have been a different story, but luckily leadership limited our exposure so much that I I didn't feel unsafe. So because of that, yeah, that was a big part of it too. I think that the library, because they were so restrictive, and then even the whole time they would say, county's doing this or local government's doing this, and we're a couple steps behind because we don't want to open up and have to go back. So they were always sort of like, so I always felt safe. So that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Huge. You mentioned that you were really scared at the beginning, and now you're not as scared. What do you think changed for you?
Yeah, I was so scared in the beginning. I don't know why. I hate being sick. We never heard of this. People were dying like crazy. I really didn't want to be sick. I hate to be sick. I said, be sick for 2 weeks or however long, like a month. Mm-hmm. I said, no, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. And just, we just had no idea what it could do to you long term. And it was just so unprecedented, which became a huge word, unprecedented. I said, no, I don't want that. Yeah. Now, I don't know when it started to change. I guess more and more people got it, like, because from now, I feel like from the information I've heard, which again, it's been so much conflicting information, from the information I've heard, I think people who haven't had it are in, like, the minority now. Like, most people have had it in some way or another. I think also, I feel like hospitals, at first, they just didn't know how to treat it and then through trial and error, unfortunately, for a lot of people who ended up not making it, they sort of, like, figured out how to use it or how to treat it. And then once the vaccine came out, I guess that was kind of a turning point. I also, right around when the vaccine came out anyway, I felt like, okay, like, I think hospitals understand it a little bit more in terms of, like, how to treat it. And it didn't feel as fatal already, even before the vaccine came out and everyone got that. I don't know, I guess now I feel like we know more about it. So many people I know have had it. And so it just doesn't scare me now. Mm-hmm. I'm just not that. It's like anything else to me. It's like any other sickness. Like, I'd prefer not to get it, but...
Yeah. Well, to respect your time, and thank you so much for sharing, is there anything else that you would like to share with us about your experience over the last 2-3 years?
I think it's interesting to look back. It seems really unique to me that the whole world at once had sort of such a redirect. Mm-hmm. Because, like, there's so many things that happen in people's personal lives that just, you end up having a redirect in life. Everyone has them. It was really weird that we all had one at once. I personally... I feel like I've talked about this with some people here, with some coworkers here. Mm-hmm. I was really there's a lot of things that I was sort of unhappy with in the world before, and I felt like it sort of shined a light on some things that weren't good, mm-hmm. like people not having paid sick time or health care in this country. Mm-hmm. I feel like there was a lot of things it shined a light on, environmental stuff. And I was, like, really hopeful that it would sort of change things. And I guess it has a little bit. I wish it would have a little bit more. It seems like now we're sort of, like, back to where we were.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Jessica. Appreciate it.